This is SF Mo, your prison lawyer. This episode 67, IGSTS. You know I'm the smoothest podcast host in podcast history. In this episode, I got N.G Young coming to us, and she's got a love story, resilience told through hip hop. Tap in. Episode 67, this is SAF Mode, your prison lawyer, the smoothest podcast host in podcast history. But I can't sing like that. What? Check us out. Level up.
N.G Young, N.G the Hiphop Butterfly, and I got something to say.
For real, for real. Y'all gon' she blew my head off.
I got something to say.
Show, because every show I do, I got creative, because I'm a writer myself. So what I did is I picked the title. I said episode 67, SAF Mode, the prison lawyer, smooth podcast, host podcast history, with N.G Young, love story of resilience through hip hop. So that's what it is. That's what the name's gonna be. Welcome.
Thank you.
Could you please tell me your name?
My name is N.G Young, N.G the Hiphop Butterfly. I am a hip hop artist, activist, and published author.
Why did you come here today?
I came here because I got something to say.
Last time you told me you had a lot to say.
I had a lot to say. I have a lot to say.
All right. Well, welcome to I Got Something to Say, N.G Young. It's a pleasure. It's been a long time coming. We've been trying to make this happen. It's been a lot of my issues, not yours, when it comes to this. And you know what? I'm about to give you the floor. Go ahead. Hit us.
All right. So, again, my name is N.G Young, hip-hop artist, author, hip-hop scholar, owner and operator of Love Must Be Entertainment, LLC. We're an organization that spreads the message of motivational hip-hop lessons in media. I am a commentator. I am a content creator. I'm an activist out here on the streets, boots on the ground, in the social activism movement here in Minnesota. And like I said, I got something to say. What gives me an authority to be in place because I have spent 15 years incarcerated here in Minnesota. I actually been incarcerated longer in Minnesota than I actually have lived in Minnesota free.
Wow.
I am not from Minnesota. I represent and I am from the south side of Chicago.
What up?
I grew up in Robert Taylor Projects. I went to Terrell Elementary, Hardigan, Medgar. I went to high school at CBS High School. And my family roots is in Chicago. But just like the great Rakim says, it's not where you're from, it's where you're at. And so my life lesson and my awakening into the reality of the carceral system here in Minnesota, the mental health system here in Minnesota, and also the political and social unrest here. We've had 3 high-profile police killings within the last few years: Philando Castile, George Floyd, and Dante Wright. Peace out to all those families, which I have worked with Dante Wright's family, and I just appreciate the opportunity to be here. My message is this: there is a link between mental illness, mass incarceration, the music industry, and the state of mainstream rap music. And I'm here as a witness to the connection and the corruption in all 3 of those things.
You got me interested right now. You want to break that down for us?
Mental illness first. Mental illness is defined as a chemical clinical disease of the brain. But that's not really saying much. what does that look like? How does that play out in my life? Well, first of all, I had a mental psychotic break with reality. But before I go to that incident, I just want to say, as a kid growing up in the Robert Taylor projects on the South Side of Chicago, and I'm sure many people can relate to this. It was my origin, my beginning in this world came from behind a cage. So I was in prison a long time before I actually went. And growing up in that so violent environment, gangs, gunshots, predators, people don't want to do things to children, it's not safe, some adults not safe. It's not even safe to go grocery shopping and get on the elevator and bring your groceries up to where you live. And we lived on the 15th floor in building 5323. And my mother, I have 3 siblings, and to go shopping, just grocery shopping, was an arduous task. And a lot of times we had to go get little at a time because the elevators were never working. And then if they were working, you were playing Russian roulette, getting on there, hoping it didn't break down in between your ride to the first floor and your apartment. So if you got on and it was working, it's a death trap if you get caught, because nobody's coming to help you. The people who usually came to help was somebody's brother or dad or uncle to pry the doors open with a crowbar and get you out. This is the extent of the help that you're going to get if you take a chance going to the grocery store and using the elevator. There were a lot of assaults on the elevator. There were a lot of assaults in the stairways, robberies. We got robbed one time for our Christmas presents, one Christmas coming in. So this is an environment of utter despair, hopelessness, violence. But there was another side to that people often don't talk about. And the reason why I went to that as a little girl is because the resilience, the skills gained from living in such an environment should not be taken for granted. Because I feel with the people who lived in those buildings, from Stateway, Caprini, IDB Wells, the Gardens, all of those places that have been since torn down, those people who survived that experience have some skills and resilience that is incomparable to what most people are used to. So myself included. And what happened with me as a little girl, couldn't go outside to play, had to stay in a 2-bedroom apartment with your siblings, and you shared. Keith Murray, who I love, in one of his poems on Deaf Poetry said, "When you can't get away, where do you go?" And for me, I retreated into my own imagination and living in my mind. So yes, I was in cage, but in order to get away, I went within. And I lived from a place of straight imagination, creating worlds inside my head, and creating worlds and writing and reading and escaping through literature, because when you can't get away, where do you go? I chose to go within. So all my life, learning that skill and living that way, I began to separate my reality from the one that was going on inside my head. And this was a skill learned. But when I had my onset of mental illness, this skill of escapism, because my world, my reality is too unbearable, lead me to split my realities in half and begin to live in the reality in my head versus the one that was going on, because it was too painful to explore. So this was the setup in my life for the onset of my mental illness and how it kind of progressed from there. So a disease of the brain, to me, was more a disease of the environment that I was in. Someone once told me it was a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. So when I relocated to Minnesota after the birth of my first child at age 15, my mother had relocated here, And she said, come here, I'll help you with the baby. You can go to school and I'll watch them. They got jobs on every corner. They got programs. They can help you. So when I came here, I did exactly that. And she was very accurate in her assessment of the opportunity here in Minnesota. And so that was great. And I thrived here. I became a preschool teacher at my son's school. And then I also went to college at night. So I would take my son with me to work. And then he would also go with me at night to my night classes, and he would stay at the college daycare, which I paid out of pocket for. I was very determined and well on my way to reaching a future that I could be proud of, that it would create a validation for all the heartache and loss and pain in my life up to that point, by building something on that foundation and using those things to propel me as a catalyst for it. Going through this process, being with my son's father, and the relationship, the toxic relationship that we had, I often listen to the song X Factor by Lauryn Hill, and I'm like, was she in a relationship with my ex, or was I? Because she's describing the very same ups and downs and the toxicity of that relationship. And when it finally ended, I felt free. And I began to get back to my musical roots. In Chicago, when I went to CBS High School, I had a singing group, and we used to sing a cappella on the subway platforms. We would go down to Roosevelt on the Dan Ryan, the first stop on the subway, and the acoustics on the subway platform was amazing, and we would just go there and harmonize. And when I got pregnant with my son in high school, that kind of stopped, and I had to focus on graduating from school and taking care of my child, which at age 16, I was emancipated by the courts to live legal adult status at 16. So at age 16 in high school, I had a kid, my own apartment, and the responsibility of living on my own as an adult, which was, needless to say, very challenging. But I was determined to finish because I didn't want to be another statistic who had all these babies and dropped out of school. People were actually telling me, you're not going to graduate from high school, you're just going to drop out and have a bunch of babies and be on welfare. And I was determined not to be that. So in the times that it was difficult to go to school with the schedule that I had, every time I thought about giving up, I would hear people say those discouraging words in my head. And actually, because of the way I'm wired, or the way I got wired, I actually use discouragement as the gas for my vehicle to drive, because I never really got encouragement. So I had to rewire my shit to think discouragement is actually going to be, because I'm hearing more of that, I'm going to use that as encouragement. So like a twisted way of, where normally someone's motivated and encouraged to keep going. When you don't have that, when I didn't have that, I just used what I had as motivation.
With a child.
Okay. Well, at the time I had relocated to Milwaukee, whereas Milwaukee, Wisconsin courts emancipated me as an adult. And so luckily for me, I found my boss a job, but she also owned an apartment building. So I would work for my rent at her mom and pop store, which she called Red Snapper. She had a fish restaurant. We could buy fresh fish, and then you can buy cooked fish. And so I was a cook and ran the register at her restaurant. So 7:30 in the morning, I have to get up. The daycare that I used for my son while I was at school had a pickup and drop off service. So I have to have him ready at 7:30 a.m. for them to pick him up in the morning. I have to be out by 8:15 to get to school on time. But sometimes if the pickup daycare was late, they would drop me off at school. So I have to be at school at 8, pick him up at 7:30, be at school at 8:30, and get breakfast, because that will probably be the only time that I eat during the day. They have breakfast at school. So from 9 to 3, school lets out at 3. Luckily, my son's daycare picked him up and dropped him off at the evening sitter, which was my little cousin, who I would pay like 20 spot just to watch my kid for the night in cash. So they would drop him off at her address at night because I had no time to pick him up and take him there. So I would get out school at 3, have to be work at 4, and I would work from 4. My shift was 8 hours, 4 to midnight. So 4 p.m. to midnight, I'm working for my rent to sustain myself and my son. After I get off work, because this was a mom and pop business, she didn't have uniform. She would tell you just to wear, you know, a black shirt and black pants. And because she didn't have a uniform, and because I was catching the bus, and because I work at a fish market, I'm on the bus smelling like fish. And people are moving out, oh, this bitch smell like pussy. And I'm like, at first I would try to explain, no, I work at Red Snapper. And then after a while, I'm like, fuck you, just say what you want to say because I know what I'm doing. So 12 midnight get off, catch the city bus, make it to the sitter at about 1 in the morning. My son's asleep, gotta wake him up, gotta wake her up, get him dressed, and head out the door, get on the bus. Most times if I made some tips, I could catch a cab from the sitters to home, but a lot of times I didn't, so I had to catch the bus. I would catch the bus, get there at 1, catch the bus, not make it home till about 2, get to sleep about 2:30. From 2:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. I was operating, that's the sleep I was operating on. Get back up and do it all again to graduate, to be determined to graduate from high school on time. High school, not a GED, not knocking nobody who had a GED, but I wanted to have the epitome of the high school diploma, graduating and feeling accomplished that I wasn't another statistic. And in 1997, June of 1997, I graduated from high school with a 3.6 GPA.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Because I was determined. So that was the background on that. Of course, there's more stories and more details that we don't have time to get into now. But after relocating, I had that same spirit of perseverance and resilience. I'm going to do and have a better life for my child. I don't want him growing up like I did with lack and fear. And I wanted him to be free. I wanted him to have all the things that I didn't have, including 2 parents in the home. But when I tried to have a relationship and live with my son's father, it was clear that he wasn't ready. He was still running the streets, drinking, hanging out, and he wasn't ready. So I relocated here to Minnesota on my own. I got involved with the Wilder Foundation's ROOF project. It's the acronym from Rebuilding Our Own Futures. And what they were a program designed to help families who had experienced homelessness that just needed that assistance to get over the hump. They ended up finding me a subsidized apartment, giving me furniture vouchers to furnish my apartment, food vouchers. I mean, it was a perfect little starter kit for living in Minnesota. And for a long time, I was very successful. Until there was a knock at my door one day from my son's father. And when I opened the door, and before that, I was pretty much made up in mind I didn't want to be with him and we weren't gonna last, we weren't gonna make it. But he showed up on my doorstep with a rope burn around his neck, and he told me he tried to hang himself because me and my son left him. If that ain't Lawrence Hill verdict to the T. And when I try to walk away, you hurt yourself to make me stay. This is crazy. And that's what it was. And so out of pity, I took him back because I really didn't want him, but I was guilted and I had pity. I'm like, what if I say no and he really goes through with it and hurts himself? What will my son say about me? What will he say, or why I didn't save my dad, or you caused the death of my dad? And so I didn't want that on my conscience or have my son say that about me. So I decided to take him back. And really, it didn't work. It wasn't, like I said, if it was out of pity and not truly because I wanted to reconcile this relationship, what is this really? And then after a while, I said, you know what? This is not gonna work. And then he popped the question, well, what if we get married? that he knew that would slow me in my tracks, because at the time I was all about status and how the world looked at me and how I was represented in this relationship. And it was always more appealing to be a wife than a baby mama. Not because I knew what it took to be a wife or I was ready to be a wife. I wanted the status of not being a baby mama, because that was kind of like down here in my mind, or not even in my mind, the way the world and society operated. When you're introduced as a wife versus a baby mama, it's a little different cut to your so-called status. But again, this is the status perceived or the perception of others in reality. So that stayed my hand. We ended up getting married. I met him when I was 14. He was 19. We ended up getting married when I was 20. At 21, we dissolved our relationship. So I was with this man for 7 years of my life. And at the end of that, it was just, I was done. It wasn't going to work. He wasn't going to change. And to really be fair, I was ill-equipped to be a wife. I didn't know what it took to be a wife. I thought I was really just playing house, if we really want to just be honest about it. And you remember playing house as a kid, you pretty much do the cook, clean, and think that everything's supposed to work out from there. And it takes work, it takes commitment, and it also takes someone being on equal footing who has the same relationship ethics that you do. If they don't have the same relationship ethics, meaning they value fidelity, they value listening to their partner, they value supporting their partner's dreams. If you don't have that, I don't know if I didn't have it, and it was disaster. So yeah. And then after that, getting over this relationship, I felt free again. I began to get in music again. And then I ended up meeting this rap crew called Mochifa Tribe. And they would have me write hooks or sing hooks, and they would give me like tracks. But we just really just sit around and smoke weed and write. That's what we called ourselves, Mochifa, because we were always chief puffing the magic dragon. You know what I'm talking about. So, and through working with them, I began to meet other people. And one day I was leaving the studio. I had written a song called My King. And I was leaving the studio, and it was a crew coming in. Now, I'm a big Wu-Tang fan. And these brothers, I could obviously see, were a part of the NGE, Nation of Gods and Earths, the 5%ers. And one of them walked in, and I saw his Circle 7 shirt. And then my producer was like, hey, you should get one of these guys to write a rap verse on your song. Because at the time, I was just really into R&B. I wasn't rapping yet. I was still just singing. And that was, my foundation is singing. And so he was like, you wrote a song called My King? And I was immediately attracted to him. I gotta admit that. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, let me hear it. And so when I sung it like I was singing it to him, right? But this song was written long before I even knew he existed. And so I was like, I kind of want a rap verse to say this and say that. And he's like, all right, word, bet. He went in his little backpack on his back, because he was a backpacker. And then he got his little notebook out, sat down in the corner, and just penned the verse right there. And I like a person with skill who can just conjure their talent at will. That's very impressive to me. And so he was like, okay, sing your song again. And so I sung it. He's like, I'm just going to come in with my verse. I sung it, and he sung the verse, and he spit his verse, and it was amazing. And I was like, oh my God, he wrote the perfect verse. He must be my soulmate. Right? And it really was just somebody with talent. And really, in retrospect, I really told him what to write, but I kind of erased that because I was already physically attracted to him and musically attracted to his talent because he was a gifted MC. And kind of just like we performed the show. A couple weeks later, we had a show at the Red Sea, and he already had his crew, and I ended up writing a song with him and his crew, plus the love song that we wrote, and we ended up performing it that night at the Red Sea and killed it. Totally split the Red Sea in half. One with adoration for him and his crew, and one with adoration for me, because people were coming up to me that night and I'm like, "You're the next Lauryn Hill," and I was like, "Whoa, that's pretty big shoes to fill." And he was like, "You were amazing." And we sung, and then that night we just kind of formed our relationship. We got together after that, and we were performing around in the Twin Cities, and our musical agreements was tight, but not the other stuff that matters that make a relationship work. So that was the first time, well, really, that was the first time I ever heard of people ending a relationship or having a relationship end because you're spiritually on two different paths. I was unequally yoked spiritually with him, not with regards to the way we see music and hip hop and rap and tight verses. We liked some of the same MCs, the same tracks, the same music. We had some of the same theories about rap music, but even that wasn't enough to keep us together. I really learned in that relationship that just because you get along or you're sexually compatible with somebody or you're musically compatible with them doesn't mean everything else is going to fall into place, and it didn't with us. And only after about 4 months of dating, our relationship was done. At the end of that 4 months, I learned I was pregnant. Later on, I learned I was pregnant with twins. And even though we weren't together, he was very excited about having twins. I found out that they were both boys, and he was excited. He said, "I'm gonna be there, I'm gonna name them, I'm gonna be there." And I think I saw him one time during my pregnancy, but he was definitely there when I gave birth via C-section. And my first two children's birth with my ex-husband was natural. No problems. It was very welcoming. I had that motherly, overwhelming dopamine hit feeling after you have a baby. It's like, oh, and you would, that loving, that nurturing, that mother instinct popped in. When I gave birth to the twins, that didn't happen. I don't know if it was because of the way I gave birth to them, because it was in a surgical room, metallic. I was on a cold metal table. It was a sterile environment. It was cold in the room, and it just didn't feel right. And when the twins were born, I didn't have that same overwhelming dopamine, loving feeling that I had with my first two children. And I knew something was wrong, and I didn't say anything. Because I'm supposed to be happy, right? I'm supposed to be, "Oh, you just had twins, you must be so happy." Something was wrong in it, and I didn't know what it was. And of course, and then when my son's father commented, he was like, "Man, we in Babylon's heart right now." They were like questioning us about the names. He named them, of course, in keeping with his 5% religion. He named the firstborn was Supreme Knowledge, Allah, because he was first. Knowledge means 1 and 5%. And Sincere Understanding, Allah. And understanding is 3, but he was the second one to come out, and 3 is related to the child. 2 is reserved for the woman, wisdom, wise dome. And so that's why they had the names. And granted, we're in a Christian Catholic hospital, and it felt all of that. 9/11 had happened during the beginning stages of our relationship, and to me, when the twins were born, on top of what I was feeling, that lack of maternal, overwhelming love and just happiness, that turned to fear for my children, to be scared for them. If anybody can remember the political, social, and the climate, the attitude of people, because 9/11 was suspected to be done by Islamic terrorists. So there was a lot of anti-Islamic, anti-Muslim behavior from everyone, not just so-called white people in this country, but from everyone. Black people too. They were waving their little flags, and I just felt like, as even if suspected Islamic terrorists did that, people assumed no Muslims or Arabs were killed during that attack, or that that was a true representation of Islam as the way I understood it. And the way I was treated versus the reality, going back to the way the reality is versus the way I hope it could be, I began to look for signs of hope. So I would watch 24-hour news stations, CNN 24 hours, looking for evidence that maybe it's not so bad. And what I got was evidence of the contrary, starting with the deplorable and horrible practices that I heard about in Guantanamo Bay, where suspected terrorists were being held and tortured. Now, after the birth, those baby blues turned into psychosis. Some people know it is kind of normal for a woman to experience the baby blues after giving birth. That's because she's loaded up with all these hormones during her pregnancy. The body compensates by these physiological changes going on in a woman's body with hormones and all kind of just stuff going on. And when the baby comes out, those things leave with the baby. And that can cause some chemical imbalances in the brain from women. And this is in retrospect of what I learned that happened to me, that I didn't know at the time, that nobody explained to me, that nobody really in my family or even told me that this was going on. So I began to have psychotic breaks. I began to fear for my children. One time I walked around with my twin sons in my arms for 8 hours straight. I wouldn't let nobody touch them. I even went to the bathroom with them. And my family, my mother, my sister, my uncle, my cousins, they were all with me. So people often think, oh, she just stressed out, she didn't have help. No, I had plenty of help. I've always had help, like a family around me to help with things. So I wasn't never like this person that has all these kids and so desperate and I'm closed up in the house with them. That wasn't my story. That wasn't my situation. What it ended up happening is I began to get also evidence that we weren't safe. Some of the women who I was friends with and also practicing Muslims, and their sons were in the nation. They had kids. They were telling me how their kids were coming home getting beat up. You and your family must have blew up the Twin Towers, and it was evidence that I wasn't safe, that my kids weren't safe, that people are going to think they're tiny terrorists. And I was having so many psychotic breaks, and my family were calling 911 on me. There were 21 911 calls to my house in the period that I gave birth to the twins up until July 2003. And then the final straw that happened as I got a hold of a book called Behold the Pale Horse by William C. Cooper. And so in my mind, I began to look for evidence that I am persecuted, that this is really real. And so Behold the Pale Horse book was the tangible proof that finally vindicated me that, hey, this is really going on. You're not crazy. They really after you. And so on page 165 of Behold a Pale Horse. William C. Cooper, who was a former U.S. Naval Intelligence officer. This was like his tell-all book of government conspiracies, secret societies. He talked about this place called Mount Weather, which is an underground city that a lot of people don't know about in America. And then he also talked about this program designed to deal with overpopulation of minorities, Hispanics, and homosexuals. It was said in this book, and this book was published many years ago, that the homosexuals would be supported, applauded, and encouraged. But however, they were only a pawn in a very nefarious game to to decrease population of undesirables, minorities in this country. And then after they achieved their desired ends, they too would be eliminated. The name of this program that William C. describes in his book, Behold a Pale Horse, is called MK Naomi. That was the proof for me that I needed, that I wasn't crazy, that I'm really being persecuted, that people are really after me. And I took the MK, people heard of MK Ultra, I took it as must kill Naomi. MK, must kill Naomi. And so when a person has experienced delusions and psychosis, the worst thing that can happen is them having physical evidence to support their delusion. Now, whether this is true or not remains to be seen, but the fact of the matter, this was someone outside of myself that I didn't know, that I wasn't connected to in any way, saying that there was a government program, MK Naomi, my first name, that said just what I was suspecting about who I am and the safety and the validity of my so-called delusions. So on July 4th, 2003, I drove to the Taste of Minnesota, which is at the time was on the Wabasha Street Bridge over the Mississippi River. I drove my car to the Taste of Minnesota, put my twins in a double stroller, walked down the street of the bridge during the Taste, pulled up to the side of the bridge barrier, and picked my twin son up one by one, dropped them into the river, and then I jumped in too. An innocent man who was a bystander jumped in to save me and my son's life. This was a white man, by the way. He saved me and he saved my son, but he couldn't save Sincere. Sincere, understand, and Allah drowned. And subsequently, I was sentenced to 19 years in prison. I wasn't given the benefit of not guilty by reason of mental illness. They said I didn't meet the standard. And I would spend the next 15 years of my life after that incident incarcerated here in Minnesota. 12 and a half years at Shakopee Women's Prison, and then 2.5 years at St. Peter's State Hospital in St. Peter, Minnesota, for a total of 15 years. And when I got out, I was determined not to be quiet. I was determined to make sure that I spread the message of mental health awareness, of political and government corruption, and in this system not far away, right here in Minnesota. The things that happened to me during my incarceration are horrible. But at the same time, it opened my eyes to the reality that I didn't know prior to going to prison. I knew it was unjust that mostly African Americans and brown people and BIPOC people and indigenous people are in prison. In fact, the number one population at Shakopee was white women. That's because of the demographic of where we are. But the second highest population in Shakopee was Native American women. And I learned a lot during my incarceration from these women. I learned about their religion and their spirituality and their history and their resilience, and they embraced me, these Native American women, and they taught me a lot about history. They taught me how, which I had heard too, the religion closer to the indigenous African religion is very close to the Native American religion, that they still they held on to theirs. We lost ours through the Middle Passage, and they taught me how to reclaim it. And I was empowered by the sisterhood of these women. Not only Native American women, but a lot of white women embraced me as well. And one woman in particular, Kua, who's a Hmong woman, who was the first to befriend me when I got to Shakopee. This woman, 5 years before my incident in 1998, and we also lived in the same housing complex. She was just a few doors down from me. She ended up taking the lives of her 6 children. And this is a Hmong woman who lived not even doors down from me. And at the time, I was very naive and I was very ignorant of the pain of women from that perspective, from any perspective other than the one that I already experienced. And I judged Kua harshly when her story came on the news. My mom was sitting next to me, and at the time I was pregnant, and her story came on, and I was like, how could she do that? She's a horrible mother. And my mom stopped me. She said, no, baby, don't do that. You don't know what that woman was going through. This is the spiritual lesson learned in retrospect. Judge ye not, or you too will be judged, and the measure that you use will be used to you. That's Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 through 5. And I really can testify to the validity and truth in that, because I judged a woman who had killed her children, and then 5 years later, I do the same thing. Then when I went to prison to sit right next to her, she was the first one to reach out to me in friendship. Talk about an enlightening experience. So when I got out of prison, I was devoted to not let my son's death be in vain. I'm devoted to helping and to spreading the message of mental health awareness, of empowerment through spirituality, and through resilience through culture, hip-hop culture, which is what I'm here to offer, and what I have, and what I'm determined to do to my last dying breath.
Beautiful.
I got something to say.
You do, definitely. Can you give me a few, the song that you sent me on YouTube, the one about suicide. Can you give me a few bars of that, please?
It's a the song is about me describing calling up a friend who's suicidal, and a phone call I had. I got a call from a friend the other day. I knew from the sound of her voice she was far from okay. She wanna slay. I'm like, who? Not the dude who played you for a fool. He ain't worthy of your queen, let it be. Nah, nay. I wanna do away with me. What? Girl, you tripping. No, I'm not. But you hot and you rock. So was Pac. They ain't stop him and Big from getting shot, did it not? The same as Pac. They sell me out for some dough and a place on the chart. Right there, tears start. I got this phone call from hip hop.
We'll be right back. N.G Young in the house. What up?
And you took down in life. You so very clear that we're wrong and you are right. Yet you still cannot.
Welcome back. It's IGSTS, it's SAF Mo, your prison lawyer, the smoothest podcast, host of podcast history. Got the pleasure to be able to sit down with the phenomenal, fantastic, gifted
N.G Young.
What's up?
N.G the hip hop butterfly.
Yes, and definitely that. Had an opportunity to speak with you in depth, get to know you.
the funny thing about us is we've met before. And it was just, to me, it was a coincidence that had universal implications that we didn't even know about it when we went past each other. I was coming out. I was on parole in Anoka County, getting ready to walk this journey. I didn't even know who I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what the universe had in store for me, right? So I had my own prescribed notion of how I was going to change the world, but it gave me what my task was. And it was so funny because at the time, part of my calling, I thought, was to write a book. So when I heard you talking about being interviewed and doing this stuff, things that you were doing, I took your card from you, and I wanted to contact you to find out how you were doing it under the same situations that I was under. And you seemed from the onset, without me knowing much about you, that you were being successfully doing it. And I didn't know your situation, which was crazy. You know what I'm saying? I thought, maybe a DUI or maybe somebody who, I didn't know. But when you sat down and we actually had a chance to talk, the things the resilience that you've been through is you can write books about what you've been doing. And I think everybody should know universally what you're able to accomplish when you don't let individuals into your head. But what I like to go back to is just, I'm not here to talk about prison. I'm here to talk about, like you said, like these things that's going on, that continue to go on because we don't talk about them. One thing is that insanity, defense, that if you watch any show around the world, they're like, we're going to plead insanity. It makes it seem like it's so simple. I would love for you to tell me what happened when you attempted to utilize that plea.
Well, it's kind of interesting how this all played out, because it was weird, because they knew for someone to do what I did, they couldn't have been in their right state of mind, right? Everybody like, I remember saying, she's not going to get any time. They're going to put that woman, she need help. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Rational people with a little bit of empathy and compassion said this. Mm-hmm. With that being said, they were in a certain class of people. At the time, I felt they were the minority of who thought that about me. Then you got the climate at the time that this happened. You have to understand what was going on in the country at the time. 9/11 just happened. We're talking about the world. They often forget, at least America was bloodthirsty. Mm-hmm. They wanted vengeance.
Yeah, definitely.
For what happened.
Right.
Right? And it's amazing that now we look back on that and we're complaining about all the lack of freedom and that stuff was in the Patriot Act. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep, definitely.
All that stuff came, and then Congress and the military gave the military a blank check. Yep. Whatever you got to do, military, so this don't happen to us again. Yep. Do it. That's basically what it boils down to.
Fear.
And then police and all the judicial branches of the government, mm-hmm. The immigration, the ICE and Homeland, all that came out of the Patriot Act.
Yep, definitely.
And the reason why everybody's so shocked about this is because at the time that my case happened, most people didn't care about being right, real, or true. They just wanted blood.
Yeah. Paid punishment. Punish whoever.
For whoever did that. And we know who was accused of doing that. And so and now people are like, hold on, wait, we are losing some freedoms around here.
Right.
we can't say nothing. We can't print nothing. We can't talk about nothing. Well, most people were so angry and not really looking at this from a pragmatic standpoint.
Rational. Yeah.
So all that stuff got said. Now we're living the effects of that still.
Exactly.
So at the time that happened, most people were on that type of time. Lack of empathy, compassion, or even questioning what's some underlying things that maybe not being recorded or maybe not being seen. That to me at the time was the majority of people.
Correct.
Especially if not the public, that was indicative and reflective in government and authority figures.
Yeah, definitely.
Which was in control of my life.
Okay.
So you had that person, and then you had the narrative of that anybody who looked like me and was reported to believe things that I believed. That character had already been created before I was here. It was created with the welfare queen archetype that they said most black women were. It was reflected in the militant so-called archetype of the black woman. It was indicative of the ignorant or crazed, unstable, psychotic, unwed. That was another thing. So that archetype had been created. So when they flashed my picture, my mugshot on that, there she go. This is somebody else we can pick to focus our hatred of what other things going on in the world. Now let's target this. Let's target the Muslims. Let's target all people who are complaining about America. And you also know protestations from police brutality. Amadou Diallo had died a couple. And we seem to forgot all about Amadou. When 9/11 happened and everybody waving these flags, well, y'all don't remember Amadou Diallo? And I think at the time, and some comedians even made a joke about this, that black people were happy not to be the target anymore. And so we jumped on that
bandwagon
because we were just happy to, it's not us this time.
Right. Yeah.
So
I remember that time.
That was the climate at the time. So therefore that narrative got translated and ran with, and my lawyers looked at me and they said, Naomi, if you were a white girl from Shoreview, you wouldn't be going to prison. You would not be going to prison. I didn't know where the hell Shoreview was at the time, and I was kind of out of, I was like, we know that's a given. But I didn't know how true it was until I got to St. Peter Hospital. And there was another case of a woman who 4 years earlier, white woman, who did what I did, but she drove her car with her sons in the back seat, and she got out the car and it went in the lake. One died and one was a vegetable, essentially brain damaged. She said she was off her meds and, okay, you need treatment, and she went to the hospital and was there 4 years and got out. She never saw prison. There was another woman during my time, because before I was sentenced, I was sent to St. Peter Hospital.
Okay.
So I wasn't in jail, county jail I would have to come there when I had court, of course, because sometimes I had to spend the night, wait from a court day. They come get me the day before or the weekend or the Friday before the Monday or whatever. And to make sure I was there. But so I was at St. Peter and a woman came in who had murdered her son. She was a white woman. And I remember her name. I won't say her name, but she taught me how to play chess. This white woman taught me how to play chess, but she taught me more than that too. She put me up on hella game. But she taught me how to play chess. She was there because she tried to drown her son in the pool. And she never saw prison. She never came to Shakopee after that interaction. She never did one day in jail. And so this is the type of disproportionate stuff I'm talking about that happens right here. Not over there, not up the street in that city over there. It happens right here.
What was your so I know how St. Peter's work. Some people don't know. So because you had a defense of insanity, they couldn't house you in jail. They put you in St. Peter's. When you finally was convicted?
They did house me in jail.
They housed you in jail.
In fact, they even housed me in the jail. See, the jail in Ramsey County used to be right by the Mississippi River.
I remember that. Dang. Yeah.
And those windows in that jail were clear as a whistle. You could see out of there. Wasn't no opaque or translucent. You could see straight out and straight in. Mm-hmm. Those windows. They were big picture windows, and they put me in a room facing the bridge and the river that is right there.
Okay, that's sick.
So after that, of course, I decompensated. And by the way, they put me in room 316. Try that on for that. I remember, because my mental, remember like rooms, numbers I was in, addresses. I always, because I'm really into numerology. So, yeah. So they put me in room J316, by the way.
I get it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mac dude.
Right.
Yeah.
So they was playing games.
Yeah,
from the very beginning. From the very beginning.
It's always a chess game.
It was always a chess game.
Yeah,
it was always a chess game.
You gotta know, because they coming at you not just physically. Everybody thinks it's a physical match, but they're coming mentally. They coming spiritually. They're coming
supernaturally.
Everywhere.
Supernaturally. Let's put that out there.
They're hitting you in all different areas, and you might be a big, strong 6'3", 5", whatever you think you are. But they understand that. So that's why they have these different levels of playing fields or planes that they come on to break you down. So you were saying that. So my thing was, so I seen a gentleman who went through the insanity plea, and they sent him up to St. Peter's, sent him up there for 2 years, and then when they deemed that he was okay, sent him back down, charged him with the crime, and sent him to prison. So how was yours different from that?
After I decompensated in the jail, which I believe was their intention anyway, why would you do that?
Yeah.
They sent me over to Regent's Hospital. Now, Regent Hospital, they sent me on a psych ward, but for people who are incarcerated, there's a separate place they put them. So just say if you were in the community and you had a crisis and you need to be hospitalized on a psych ward, that's not the psych. It's on the same floor, but it's a locked part. They had me in this little bitty room. I mean, this area right here we're sitting is bigger than the room they had.
Oh my God.
And I only was let out for showers and one phone call. And when people visit me, including the doctor and the nurses, they talk to me through the tray door. I never was let out. Well, one time I was let out to talk to a doctor twice. And other than that, it's this nurse that used to sit by my door. She had red hair. She used to give me gum to, talk to me. And one day I was really crying. And she said, "Are you blaming yourself?" I said, "Well, how could I not?" She said, "Well, if you were driving your car and you had your twin sons in the back and you lost control of your car, you had a heart attack, and one of your children died, would you be blaming yourself or would you be blaming your heart attack?" That was the first time anybody ever put it to me like me. Now, man, I had been in the jail since July 4th. On July 31st, I was transferred to, it was July 25th, I was transferred to the hospital. July 31st, I was transferred to St. Peter. When I was on the psych ward at that lock facility at Regions, my lawyer, I was assigned a civil lawyer. So you have a civil case, which is the civil commitment case, and then you have your criminal case. These are two different areas, court systems, and everything. They usually like to keep these separate.
Yeah.
But I saw that they influenced each other, the whole case, my whole case. So they called, my lawyer, the only way I can get you out of this room is to commit you. If I get you out of this room, send you to St. Peter, it's much better. You don't have to be in this tiny room. I said, do what you got to do because I'm having nightmares in here. And And we had a very fast court proceeding. I didn't know what I was agreeing to. But essentially, I was agreeing to be committed as mentally ill and dangerous. That is a civil commitment. It's AKA mentally ill and dangerous, AKA MIND, or having the D. Having the D. That's what that's called. You got the D. See, you can be committed as mentally ill, but you don't have the D, the dangerousness part. Like, let's say if I would have just jumped myself and not my twins, I would have been committed as mentally ill. Okay. Not mentally ill and dangerous.
So the dangerous part of it is what you're saying is that when it comes to, because the civil commit is indefinite,
right?
And then the dangerous is what you're saying is that it's a lot harder to come up underneath that dangerous than if you just jumped over
by myself.
By yourself. So
the dangerousness is that you have harmed or attempted to harm another person in the throes of your mental illness. Notice that's what it says. That's what the commitment says. Okay. So I was committed as MIND, really not knowing what was going on. All they told me is you're gonna get out this room. Right. Fine. Do what you got to do.
That's what they usually tell you. Yeah.
Do what you got to do. They sent me to St. Peter, and that began the process of when you commit a crime and you're rumored to be having a mental break, which would lead to your crime. In Minnesota, you have a 2001 and a 2002 evaluation. 2001, the first part of this court-ordered examination is that are you competent to stand trial? That's the 2001. A lot of people hear that one, but not the 2002. The 2002, did you commit this crime and therefore not responsible by reason of mental illness?
So I heard about that too, because how could you? They always say, how could you be competent? But then, how could you be competent to stand the trial, but then, or not competent, and then be able to stand trial or go to trial? It's just like this, but they meet in different in the law. The law looks at those terms differently. Being able to stand trial, be competent, and then also being mentally ill, or I know what you're saying, and I've heard that before, and I heard how, because they broke it down for me one time, because I didn't know the difference between the two, because they sound so similar in layman terms. You just convolute or you interchange those terms, and to me,
it's meant to be confusing and not really be understood by people who not in this. They throwing numbers around, terms around. I've never been arrested. I've never had a criminal record.
That's crazy.
Never nothing.
That is so.
Never. I had a traffic ticket for speeding. That's it. I never had anything on my record.
And that's you. So when we come to this particular point, you and I are sort of saying the same thing. For the most part, the majority of our lives, we have been law abiding. So I don't know, I'm gonna challenge you with this. So in my mind, when I was going through my conviction, I was like, there has to be some leniency in this system that's gonna see the fact that for the longest, I have not done anything. And even if I'm convicted, they're gonna show some leniency on me. Did you think that during your
Truthfully, no.
Okay.
Because of the way I was treated in the jail, I was like, oh, they finna get me.
Just slam you.
They angry. And it was the way, with the exception of a couple guards who are Miss Becky and her daughter Sarah, they always looked out for me. Guard Tequila, she always looked out for me. It's people that I remember. I don't remember just the bad. It was people, just like people always say, it's bad people out here. Well, it's good people out here too.
Definitely.
It is good people in positions like that. We don't often think that they exist, but they are there, and maybe they put there just to be your angels at the time.
Yeah.
But it definitely was some people who really showed me love and compassion, and I just shout out them names of the guards at the Ramsey County Jail, Miss Becky and her daughter Cheryl. Sorry. Yeah, but
You're talking about that 24. I don't get the number. You're talking about the difference between the
2001, 2002.
Yeah.
Let me get back on track. Okay. So 2001, 2002. I was found competent to stand trial, which I knew they would because I wasn't ignorant. That was another thing used against me, my intelligence. Oh, because she's intelligent, she must be competent and she must be responsible for her own actions because she can talk and articulate. I hate that fucking compliment with a passion. What do you mean I'm articulate and I speak so well? That seems like a diss. What do you think? How you expect me to talk? Like this, and you expect me to talk like that? Then that's your own racist, bigoted ass
problem
thinking.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they said I was too intelligent. They said my house was too clean.
What?
That was another thing. My house was too clean for me to be insane. My house was too clean and she too intelligent. And they said she doesn't fit the standard. The 2002 was, are you guilty by reason of mental illness? She doesn't fit the standard because she knew her actions was wrong. And even though she felt doing the wrong thing meant something right, she's still responsible. I believe they were never ever going to find me not guilty by reason of mental illness.
Right. And that
simply because of the fact they wanted to pound the flesh.
Well, but they also wanted this to be a representation of how they felt at that time. And you were a poster child for that. We're not going easy on any one of them or anything they attempt to do. So you're right, and that's the problem with the law is that it's open to interpretation. It's not built on fair. It's not even about fairness or giving people equity or any like I said. I was ignorant at the time, and I felt as though it was going to be lenient on me. But yeah, it's a political mechanism that they utilize to perpetuate whatever they want to perpetuate at that particular time. So you're definitely right. I found it out eventually through just going through the law and trying to appeal my case. But yeah, so
speaking on the McNaughton standard, which is the standard they judge in Minnesota by. Daniel McNaughton was some dude who committed a crime back in the early 1800s, right? And he got found not guilty by reason of mental illness. And people are like, hold on. We got to set some standards. So first of all, the McNaughton was not meant or intended to be more inclusive. First of all, it wasn't written like that. It was written to be more restrictive on who we found not guilty by reason of mental illness.
And that's a problem in itself.
So that's the way the law was created. It was like, hold on, we just can't be letting people off like anything. And it was meant for that. Early 1800s, this law was written. Freud, who the psychiatric community had their heads up his ass for some reason, was 12 at the time that law was written. And in Minnesota, it has not changed since. That's the same law that was on the books that was written, probably on the same paper as the Declaration of Independence. Is the same law that exists today. Other states, which use the McNaughton standard, most people do use the McNaughton standard, but other states have updated and their laws to meet with the sciences we know about the mind, with modern day mental illnesses. They're like, oh, okay, we know what brain diseases are, and we have evidence of this, and we can diagnose this, and we have science and research backing this. When that law was written, people were like the Amish, driving horses and buggies.
Yeah.
We got cars that can drive themselves, and we still haven't updated this law.
Yeah, in a progressive state of Minnesota, where it has the air of being progressive, but when you actually look at what they do as far as law, they're not progressive at all. But yeah, that when you hooked me to that, I mean, because I've looked at that McNaughton deal because I was looking for defenses, and that I didn't know that, and that really that's crazy that they would still be doing that to people. It makes no sense, and nobody has said anything about it. But we have you now, pointing that out.
And this is the method that is often silent, overlooked, underlooked. Is how our men, black women, overrepresent in these institutions I just came from.
Yeah.
Especially at the hospital.
St. Peter's?
Yes.
I know.
Because in order to get out from there, I think you got a shorter obstacle course if you trekked across the Savannah Plain in Africa. It's a less intimidating and difficult course to complete. There are virtually no doctors, nurses, staff that are people of color. But you house, treat, and supposedly can approve or disapprove the release of individuals who are of color.
That's crazy.
And do you have enough cultural competence to treat this person? I'm gonna give you one cool example that you're just gonna blow your wig. Have you like to play spades?
Yeah.
You like to play
spades?
spades?
Yeah, I play spades.
Well, when you're playing spades with a group of black men at a table, don't slap them cards. That's aggressive. That scares us. This is criminalizing something. When we play cards, we talk, you can't do that. No slapping cards. That's a rule.
So that's very...
And that's noted when you're aggressive slapping cards.
That's very important that you said that.
When you are talking, like if you got up and you got passionate about something,
yes,
I'm not gonna feel threatened by that unless I know it's something directly connected to me. If you just venting right now, I have no reason to be scared, because why? I got brothers that do that. I got a husband that do that. I got sons that do that. I got a dad that do that. I got uncles. I got cousins and friends.
That's how we talk.
Now that's how we talk.
That's how we talk.
But being you in that space is scary. It's aggressive behavior. So now you got a team of people who don't get you, who don't understand your culture, who have also been programmed to think that who you are, everything about you is wrong, immoral, and illegal.
Yeah, definitely.
Now you got to convince these people and tone down your blackness a little bit in order to get out this damn hospital.
Well, I would challenge you and say that that's how criminal justice in itself is arranged, even through all their programming, because all their programming is set on individuals who have this. If you look in their books, they're written in when racism is at height. We talked about all those different things, those theories that they had about craniums and everything that was going on at the time, and they're still utilizing that to be where these are the forethoughts. These are the fathers of their thought, and it's still ingrained in it. So when they do any type of programming, whether it becomes criminal justice, behaviorism, it's always built on our behavior being aggressive. And that goes back to what we talked about initially about them utilizing criminal statutes to criminalize behavior. So the things that we do, it's so people get it mixed up when they think about the disproportionate. It doesn't come because a judge is he dislikes you or she dislikes you. It comes specifically from the legislator, because they're so crafty with their words. They've been able to study us and then turn what we do into a criminal behavior. So when you say St. Peter's,
the reason why I say St. Peter's, and this is not to say that a lot of unjust time is given out through the criminal justice system. I'm saying, at least if you're not given life without parole, which happens more often than it should, you have a release date. Going to prison.
Yeah.
St. Peter is an indefinite commitment. The only way you get out of there is convincing this team of individuals that you're not a danger to society.
I heard something about that.
You don't have a release date. It ain't like you here for 3 years, you go to this no. You, at each step of the way, the team got to approve, okay, now you can go on passes. But only with a staff and handcuffs. Okay, now you can take off the handcuffs and you can go by yourself. Okay, now you can go out with groups. You got to use a buddy. And it goes in these incremental stages that they slowly increase and let you have more room, which they can bring your ass back all the way to square one, back to what is it? Back to back home, back to go.
Yeah, back to
you got to start all over again. If they say something you did along that walking up that ladder or down it, depending on how you want to look at it, you got to get that approval every step of the way to get out. And I'm saying this to say, I got out. I had to appeal to get out. They didn't just say, "Okay, Nay, you ready to go." I had to have I had to appeal to the Supreme Court. Now, in the Supreme Court, a civil court is a 3-judge panel. This is where you not have 1 but 2, but 3 judges sitting deciding your fate. Now you got to convince these individuals, because they won't approve you getting out, that you can get out. So now I got to fight them. They said, "No, you ain't ready to get out. You need some more time. I need more seasoning is what I need." And so I wasn't hearing none of that. And because I have the family that I do, because I wasn't one of those people who in this institution that families are unable or unwilling to support.
Don't understand.
Thank God my great-grandmother had 20 children.
Yeah.
Because all them had children.
Yeah.
And all them had children. So we deep. My crew deep. we D double E to the B. We deep. Yes. And so they would pack courtrooms. They even changed the rule, or as they said, started to enforce it, where you can only have Miss Gaines, you can only we're gonna limit how many people can be in there, because they was packing the court, stood up, big black men in my family. Fuck with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my husband had to leave the courtroom because, But anyway, I've always had that, protection. I've always had that familial protection. And they packed each courtroom. I never had to walk in a courtroom by myself. To the point where people start getting the hint, we need to pack courtrooms for people who don't have family, to make the court know that people care about this person. Because these injustices go on in the dark, in the silent, in the corner, where nobody's looking and not on nobody's radar. Like, did you know just before now the stuff somebody got to go to once they're committed into the hospital versus, you rather go to prison. You give you 2 years, when your 2-year date comes, you leave. You people, the average stay there is 10 years, regardless of what you did. They say they're getting people out faster now. That may be true, but you still each step of the way got to get the approval team of people who don't understand you, your culture, nor even care about it.
Don't
even think it's important.
They don't need to.
Just use our culture and you be all the way. You see, we doing good. That's doing good was doing bad.
I mean, it's so that's a thing within itself, and it's just it's horrible. I've been familiar with the sex offender program they have up there, and how they never allowed anyone to get out. And then they let one person out to say, "Hey, we're allowed to get somebody out." But they can do these things because, and it's such a great circle. We circle right back around, because once they fearmonger and they get you so scared, the same way they did with 9/11, the same way they did with everything. These people want to turn a blind eye. They don't want to hear you. They don't want to hear your story. And it was such a great circle back when you said that Hmong lady. Because I did the same thing. As I sat and watched TV, I seen a lot of people go to prison or go to jail. I heard their crimes. I seen them in an orange jumpsuit. I was like, that person's guilty, until it was me. And we talked about that too. You know, when they took this person, then I didn't care because I wasn't that person. They took this person.
It
I didn't
happened
care.
to me. When my family, I ain't had no mental illness. I don't. We straight over here.
Yeah.
Black don't crack. All that bullshit.
Yeah.
You were strong. This was, I talk about being a matriarch of a family. And
Yes.
at the time I was.
Yes.
The matriarch, and not every black woman is one, but most of them are. You know what I'm saying? The matriarch of a large family is the one. Everyone's stationed, like as far as my family, Minnesota got a matriarch. In Chicago there's a matriarch because I'm from Chicago. It's a couple matriarchs. In Milwaukee there's a matriarch. And what I'm talking about, this woman, when everybody comes to town, they go stay at her house.
Yeah.
You get out of jail, you need your girlfriend put you out, go sleep on her couch.
Yeah.
You need a few dollars to get to work, the bus fare, cab fare to get to work. Car fare is what the people in Chicago. Yes, car fare. That's what they call it, car fare. Yes, a car fare. Ask Naomi, she got it for you. I can't tell you how many times I didn't even know what the hell a matriarch was. I just knew I was helping everybody.
Well, it's not something that you come into and you get tapped on. It's something that's within you that exudes you, and you can't do anything about it, right? It's just like breathing. The other thing about it is I looked at my grandmothers being matriarchs, but I also look at the animal kingdom and how we talked about women and the servitude of women and men and their relationships and the structure of the family. But you got to understand, like horses and elephants, the women they're the ones who run that pack. That I just not call a pack, but they're the ones that are in control. They're the ones who, the men are for protection, but the children are always in the middle. So. This society's been around for a long time. They've got it figured out. So exactly with us, and within us, we have it figured out too. We have it figured out for a long time. That's why I say within our culture, like a lot of these First Nation cultures, we find women. In fact, if you look at the totem pole in itself is set up matriarch, about the matriarch. So it's huge. Well, women deities in Africa, we've always had that. It's never been a situation where we had this issue. We always knew our women were deities. We always knew our women. We were supposed to respect them. They always had a place in our government, in our business. So when you talk about that matriarch, I always think about the family of women that raised me, and they raised me as gangster, as knowledgeable, as business savvy, as anybody. Any gangster you want to call, they were the gangsters in my family.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
The women in my family too. My mom has 7 sisters, 1 brother. Come on now. When people talk, I've heard, and I heard this recently. My daughter, she be on the internet. Whatever. She talked about, Mom, they talking about women being black male identified. I said, what is this? What is some new lingo?
Yeah.
It's actually looked down upon for a black woman to be, they call it black male identified. I don't want to misspeak or misquote somebody, but what I feel is like black women who support love and, stand by her man type thing. Okay. And I guess that's looked down upon.
Yeah,
now.
I could.
And I actually wonder how many of those women that think like that had a dad, had positive relationships with black men, had protection from black men, who actually see the advantages of being in with a black man raising your child together. How many of these women had all of that and said, "No, I don't want to be associated with that no more." I think that these women haven't had that.
None.
I could not see. I have cousins. I have sons. I got 1 brother. Trust, and he is the epitome of a good black man. Epitome of a protector, provider, good father. My uncles, my male cousins, my husband, my father. I got and my father-in-law and my brothers-in-law. So I know if I was to throw my hat in there, dark suits fill the room. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, if you have that and you had that, how can you say that ain't cool? I don't want to be. So you can't, from what I understand about this, I don't see a woman who has had that hedge of protection and level of love, adoration, and respect could deny that or say she ashamed to be recognized with that.
Well, to me, it's a yin and a yang. It's a symbiotic relationship. It's that leather soft. You know what I'm saying? It's you know, it's the so you need both of those elements within the universe for the universe to function, right? It can't be just either.
Well, I know what that's about. What that's about is just what every other argument among black people. Are you for reparations against race? Do you believe black people were the original Indians or not? Are you claiming you're from Africa? Are you a Pan-Africanist? Are you a tribalist? Are you believe all that argument, Democrat, Republican? That shit needs to be dead. Cause I'm telling you, if this shit go down tomorrow, ain't nobody gonna be talking about, oh, are you a Republican or a Democrat? Or do you believe that you was a Native American or not? No. You got this. It's go time. So when you figure all that stuff, when they get done arguing about who right, who wrong, or whatever issue we got, who worship the devil, who don't, that ain't none of my spiritual business. I'm minding my spiritual business. Because one thing I can say for sure is how we tear down each other and how divisive we are, that's by design.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
That's by design.
That's what I was gonna get at.
That is people throwing monkey wrenches in the game. And what happened with I just want to speak on the brawl. The reason why people was so, and this is just so sad. The reason why people were so happy is because we see our celebrities and the people we look up to tearing each other down. So we begin to think that we as a public are reflective. We believe the own lie, the own narrative that we've been divided and we hate each other. That shit not true. I walk in my neighborhood every day and I'm good. I walked in my neighborhood in Chicago. Everybody ain't out to get you.
Right.
Most people are scared, confused, and in survival mode right now. And in those states of being, having been in those states of being, I have a lot of compassion for mercy for people who had just not figured it out. They just don't know. We can fix that. That's an easy fix. Ignorant is an easy fix. You just get some education, get some awareness, you gone. Ignorant, you can't fix. Ignorant is I don't give a damn. I don't know and I don't care. I'm doing me. Okay, going over there. Let me get to these ignorant people who are questioning like, hey, something ain't right.
Right.
You come hither. I'll get those. I ain't trying to convince you to wake up to shit. I'm not. If you on that, go down your merrily way. Yeah. I wish you the best.
So my question to you would be, seeing what you're saying and just the flow of it, it seems it's all flowing together. This is directly reflective of the rap music that we listen to now and the things that we see within it, because to me it's so drama orientated and so high level that to live a regular life and be comfortable and logical and rational seems to be not cool anymore. I'd like to have you speak on that, just real, just give us your knowledge and understanding of that.
Sometimes you have to go back to the beginning and learn. And when we look at history, we look at the emergence of American art form. Look at jazz. But people look at that, oh, it's a good genre. I like a couple Coltrane songs. You're not even doing jazz justice if you think about that. Like, think about the environment in which it was birthed. That's what's important. The music is important, but the music tells a story about what our people were going through at the time of its emergence.
Yes.
Same thing with blues.
Yes, definitely.
Same thing with boogie woogie, which later got changed to rock and roll.
Yep.
We all know how that went.
Yep.
And then you had rap coming up in the South Bronx. Which, by the way, I just left for the 50-year hip-hop celebration. It was amazing. Got to see KRS-One perform. It was crazy. I danced so hard that my clothes were soaked with sweat at the block party. So I had a good time. But shout out to everybody there. New York is just amazing. The people there, man, your traffic. I don't like your traffic. Took me 3 hours to get to the South Bronx from Jersey. A 30-minute ride. That's ridiculous. But I love y'all New York, so. And my initials Naomi Young, N.Y. So I, of course, have to love New York. So think about the environment in which rap was born. I believe that each of those emergences of those three things, or the soul music in the 60s and 70s, came up as like a medicine for us, or something to grab onto. Like, that was sent down from the heavens for us. Like, y'all people going through this. Let me sprinkle y'all with some love. Y'all need this right now. Just it's like a somebody throwing you a lifeboat, a spiritual lifeboat when you're out here drowning. And in that spirit, I know that has worked several times throughout the history of being in this country and being black. It was meant as medicine, as sustenance, as a spiritual meal that you can sink your teeth into until you get through to the next phase of our journey. Why is rap not doing that right now? It's doing the opposite. I'm gonna tell you why. Because music, and specifically hip hop, is a weapon. And it has been turned in on us and pointed at us. Let me tell you what's going on. Do you really think that the rap that's out in the mainstream now is all the good rap songs it is? Like, even by people who are underground or out right now. You think that's the best and the only thing that we got to offer? Not at all. So then that must mean somebody is putting the gate down on what can we see and what can we not. It took them a minute to get hip to what we was doing politically with rap. Yeah. And when it was like, oh, we gotta stop this. We gotta stop this. Same thing they did in the 60s. They asked, what these black people was taking over, these Temptations, these Steiner Rosses, these people got them, give them everything, give them the record labels, give them radio pay, but don't you dare give them distribution. Right. We keep that. Yep. That's where the money is. Yep. So, that gate went up back in the 50s and 60s. Another gate went up is to own our shit. Our masters. You mean to tell me, this is, somebody explained it to me, and forgive me if I don't know who said. They said, imagine a bank giving you a bank loan for your business, right? They give you a bank loan. You make the money back and you pay your shit back. The bank saying, yeah, you owe me money from your business for the rest of your life, for your natural life throughout the universe in perpetuity. What? Right. No human being should have, corporations should have those kind of rights. Slavery. No, that is an inalienable right, to have a right to who you are. Your work, your creation, someone else owns it. So, and this little sweetheart that people are also beginning to wake up to, the same record corporations that control all the music, or at least 95% of it in the Western world, are the biggest owners, investors, and buildings of prisons. Yeah. Some may, what? Makes sense. It makes sense. That's like having a drug that causes cancer. Yup. And then having the chemotherapy game sold up. Everything to do with cancer, you got that sold up. So you essentially created a way that you can have perpetual life, ongoing business, and then you can also respond with the so-called need that is created out of that. So-called need. And I say so-called because that's not the answer. Is mass warehousing people. It is the answer if you want to exterminate and limit and destroy a population of people. And yeah, that's a great way to do that.
To break down the structure of a family.
And the family, take the black men out, doing Willie Lynch live and in color.
Yeah. The more,
that's a great way if you want to do that. And I feel, this is how I feel about mainstream. A lot of these young kids don't know this. They don't know the strings that's being pulled and how their favorite artists and shit is being controlled. And how they can't, you think, I don't give a damn what nobody say. Nobody is one dimensional. Nobody in this world is just one thing. If you are, where's the balance? I don't give a damn if you want to talk about what you talk about. Can I hear a song about your grandmother?
No.
That made you cookies and she was. No. Can I hear one of them DMX songs that he made about his grandmother? Can I hear a song about how you battle with good and evil and you just trying to stay on the straight and narrow like Damien and DMX? Can you?
No. It's all about
I think they have the ability. I'm not gonna believe that these artists don't have the ability. They great artists. They make good. The good ones can make good songs.
They can.
But if they're not, why is that? Is your label telling you, no, we ain't putting that shit out?
They're telling them exactly that because they're gonna show because at the end of the day, it's just like you and I are saying. Like when we came up, the models that rappers use were the individuals on the street. Nowadays, what the individuals on the street use as models, the individuals making the music. They made that swap, that switch. So now if they got us looking at these individuals who live these lives that makes no sense. You tell me you pop pills and smoke weed and you do all that all day long of your life. That's all you do. And that's who I want to be like. It's like it don't make no sense. It can never make sense. In fact, what it's doing to our people is it just driving us off that hill, off that cliff.
I'm telling you, the goal is much more sinister
Tell me,
that.
come on now.
I'm telling you. Okay, imagine if you had a twin brother. He looked just like you. He dressed like you. Can't nobody tell y'all apart. When your twin brother go out there, he wilding the fuck out. He killing. He beating up people. He doing this all on camera. People look at you. You ain't about that life. Y'all regular Cain and Abel, right? You just you grow vegetables. You got a nice little wife. You do what you can to help the community. But people only know when they see you, they see your brother.
Yes, I get it.
It will be easier to eliminate you because you the threat, not your brother. They actually working. Your brother actually working for the ops.
Yeah.
He don't really like you that much.
Yeah.
He want what you have, but he just don't know how to get it. That was the problem with Cain and Abel. But you do the right thing. You live a pretty decent life. You're the threat, not your brother. So what they're going to do is kill two birds with one stone.
That makes sense.
Tell everybody this is your brother. This is what you're about. This is this man. Look at what he's doing. Look at how he treats his community. Look at how ignorant he popping pills. He all in. He talking about violence. They're not after him. They after you. And in that sense, that's what's happened to rap. And they're gonna say rap music's over. Look at these. So they can kill the political, the activists, the independent artists, the people that's really on the front lines doing this shit every day for them to get what they get, do what they do, say what they say. Yeah, you up here doing all this, but we out here fighting for you the ability to say that shit. Because they trying to take that too.
They're gonna take it.
If you don't wake up.
Exactly.
And so they're gonna make people believe that this is the representation of hip hop and this is why hip hop needs to die. They're not saying die for the people on. They saying die for the people they really threatened by. The people that be at the Capitol. The people that be meeting with politicians and changing stuff. People like me. People like other people who fight for the rights of people. That's the threat, not these motherfuckers.
No, they never can be. They don't even know which day.
They don't even know. They think, hey, I'm hot right now.
I'm going to the club. What's the nigga?
I got money right now. I'm the shit.
I'm just.
That's great, but I don't give a fuck about none of that shit if you can't speak to the pain of your people.
They don't. They like so that social thought, that the sociopathic thought makes you only think about yourself. It's not about people. It's evolution. They believe that it's sometimes they've been evolved to a point where that it's like we had a communal thought process when back in the days, even when I was coming up, we all stayed in the house. That's where Big Mama came from because she ran that house, right? So with that being said, it's this capitalism, this independent thought process, this I care about myself and fuck you. Mm-hmm. That's the problem that's going on.
I think that exists in life and in reality in every group of people, every person. But the point I'm saying now, sir, ma'am, at the top, if you don't speak to these things now, we ain't gonna want to hear that shit when it start happening to you. In other words, don't start to care about something. Like one, I ain't gonna say who the artist was, but they was like, I don't experience that. That don't have nothing to do with me. And then it happened, and they was like, I guess it do.
Oh yeah. Now I care.
And that was our situation too.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying, don't learn the hard way. I learned secondhand. I also experienced joy secondhand. I love secondhand joy. Meaning I love to see somebody living their best life, doing good, and radiating beauty and love and power. That is not intimidating for me because I come from a family of women. I've never been intimidated by strong, beautiful women. I've never been in. That is always aunties. My aunties like that. My mom like. I never. It's nothing for me to walk into a room and see another girl. Look at you. Look at the outfit. You look cute. Because it doesn't take away from me.
Yes.
Because I know I am. And if I recognize that, and if I see that in another, I acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never about what somebody else. In other words, just like Talib Kweli said. Yes, God bless it. Yes, I did. God bless the kid. I got my own, so I never stress his. Meaning, yeah, the God bless the child that's got his own. I got my own. I'm straight over here. I don't want what you have. It's just this feeling that if I give love, if I give forgiveness, if I give opportunity, if I give resources, then I'll lose something.
Yeah,
that's good, true on the political scale too. If I pass these laws for equality, if I give black people what they want, I won't exist no more, or I won't have what I have, or I can't do what I do if I evenly spread my wealth and resources.
Well, we've been taken for so long, so of course you're scared about equality, but we talk about equity being just fair, but we also talk about restoration being restored back to the person you were. And they don't, so of course the vernacular makes you believe that if I give you something, I lose, but it's been stuff that you've been taking for the longest that we just need back. Okay, with that being said, I just want you have some of the things coming up in the future. Do you want to tell us about those things so we can support you?
Well, I do a lot of activism work on my job at Minnesota Freedom Fund. So I'm not just an artist and activist. I'm an activist and organizer with Minnesota Freedom Fund. And what we're doing, and we're about to engage in building our base and really getting the message out there about the harms of cash bail. There's a lot of light shined on police brutality and mass incarceration, and it should be. But there's very little spotlight in the middle for the pre-trial injustices that are going on with cash bail. If you know if certain people have been locked out of obtaining wealth and resources, then they come into your courts. As a result, the 80% of the stops that happen in Minnesota are by pulled over. Black and brown people are victims of 80% of traffic stops and searches. 80%. That's here. That's here. Not over there. Not back there. Not down south somewhere. Here. In the great north. The enlightened north.
Yeah.
It's going on right here. So, if we majority getting stopped and pulled over, and we broke as fuck around here, when we go to jail, and they say, "Can you afford an attorney?" No, I ain't got shit. I can't. Okay, we'll give you an attorney, but you don't have a $30,000 bail.
Yep, that's how they do it. Yep.
You know.
Yep. Yeah.
This is a way. All these are done in plain sight, and I'm amazed that it's taking people this long to realize this shit ain't right. Like, you're kept in jail and you're given a higher bail than Sally Sue that just came in. Sally Sue got conditional release.
Right.
She out of there.
Yeah.
She got released on all recordings. Your black ass came in this court and they said, yeah, your bail $60,000. Damn, $60,000.
Yeah. Yup.
This, just come to a courtroom. I ain't gotta tell you this. Go, if you listening to this, whatever city you in, go to your county jail, first appearance, bail hearings. Go sit in the felony court, because they usually have two courts, misdemeanor and felony. And just go sit in there and go to a area that is a diverse, populated area where you'll see a mix of people, and watch who get $30,000 and $60,000 bails and who get OR and release and conditional release or lower bails.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
and tell me, then you can come tell me I'm spreading hate or lying or ruffling feathers or talking shit. Then you can tell me that.
No, it's been known. It goes back to what you said. It's just, it doesn't affect certain individuals, so nobody really cares. I mean, the individuals who have money to make bail, they're not worried about it. And individuals who don't need money to make bail, they're not worried about it. Only person to get held is us. So that's why we establish jobs. That's why we establish a lot of different things. Why we do the podcast, why you do what you do, is because those individuals, those marginalized individuals, historically marginalized individuals, are the ones who's getting held, but they're the ones who are less likely to mobilize to reduce that. So that's what we're attempting to do. So you're trying to bring recognition to the bill. How do you feel about, because it's been a lot of stuff that they've been utilized. Anytime anybody who receives any assistance with bail and something should happen thereafter, they've been making that an issue in the news. Have you seen that?
Of course, and then they happen to sometimes mention Minnesota Freedom Fund, but we know these are from people who. It's funny. This is really funny that these people who accentuate these African Americans, how come they never have no other races of people on their site? That's interesting, because we know the demographic. We more in Minnesota, so who doing more to? But anyway, so you got to really poke holes in that shit and look at it with a grain of salt.
Yep.
Because you're trying to stand on a moral ground and saying this is wrong, these people are wrong. But yeah, it's groups of people in every group of people that be on bullshit.
Right. Yep.
It's a mind state. That's what it is. I shy away from using and the racial reality. What's understood ain't got to be explained. But I often, when people are talking about this type of subject, like from the right, which is a majority of the pushback on these issues,
Exactly.
they say they standing on a moral ground, and that shit is sand, fam. Matter of fact, it's marsh. Swamp water. You ain't standing on shit. You have no room, none, to talk shit about what somebody is wrongdoing.
Right.
If you really want to keep it all the way a buck, and this is why they won't admit to climate change or human involvement in climate change, man, Okay, my man. Okay, let's just say black people commit crimes, more survival crimes, and all those kinds of things. As a result, we can all break that down, and there's research on that. There's the Kerner report. There's history. There's you looking out your goddamn window. And so you want to talk about that? Let's line up. I will play it. Let's line up who do the greatest crime in the world.
Exactly. All day. Well, you want to go historical?
You want to go? You want to line that up?
Yeah, they.
We can't even sit here right now. The air, the water, the fucking system is fucked up. Black people did that. We what mines are? What fracking is we doing? What ripping up and creating pipelines are we doing? Please let me know. Where's all these people doing? These black people doing all this environmental damage.
That's
you won't find it. So when they accuse being more criminal, black people did this, I just sit back and laugh at that shit. Because if we had a tally mark on who do most shit globally, it ain't us. This is why Tupac said, "Smile, nigga, you black. You ain't got nothing to be worried about."
That's crazy. That so I just want to I want to end on this. I mean, it's been a phenomenal segment. I definitely want to have you come back. I definitely want to build with you. I know we're going to be, like I said, the first time we met, I never knew that it was going to be this, but I just really don't know what's in the store for the future of us. It's something great for both of us. You know what I'm saying? So I know we spoke, and you were talking, about these crossroads that you're about to cross, and I just believe that, like everything, just like that day I met you, I didn't know I was going to be sitting across you, interviewing you. I didn't know that, and I didn't know. And it's a lot of things that we don't know. We just prepare ourselves, right? I prepared myself for the unexpected, and we're never at just like where you're at right now. From the day you were born, you were supposed to be right here, right now, right now. There's no mistake. There's no by happenstance. No, it's exactly where it's supposed to be at. And when we start to understand that, then we do better. And like I want to say this to you, and I mean this for the heart. I just see greatness. I saw it the first day I met you. I saw it. That's why I got the business card. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, you know what I'm saying? Just off like, man, she's doing major work. You know what I'm saying? With her hands shackled. And I really didn't even know what was going on with you at the time. I just knew that we both were going to see parole. I didn't know I was going to see parole.
I'm going parole.
I didn't know what I thought you said. I said, oh, she done got some DUI she about to deal with. I didn't, you know what I'm saying?
I had 3 parole officers.
You were RSR?
3 parole officers. Yeah. Damn.
Anoka County is the worst. Anoka County sent me back. Anoka County bitch ass. But besides that, I digress.
You like Anoka County too, huh?
Yes, sir.
Anoka County too.
Yeah, it's Anoka County.
Oh, sorry.
So we wrapping up. So all I want to say is that I thank God that He allowed me to meet you. I was able to meet you in the fence. If I was smart enough, I would have just really, when I got the car, I would have called you like, hey, what's going on? Let's collaborate. Let's do something like that. But like I said, we got back together, and it's greater later, as we say in the streets. You know what I'm saying? And I want to say how proud I am to know you, to participate, be in the same spaces that you are, and the fact that you came to the show to talk to me and break down things and to really, really, really open up and be vulnerable. That just speaks a lot to So when it comes to this show specifically, I make sure that I don't interview anybody who think that they got some type of flow. I want people to be like, man, when I see you on the streets, I'm gonna flick up with you because you're greater than any individual that's out there. And I think that's what we achieved today with you coming to the show. And
I appreciate you. But I want to give you a gift before we wrap up.
It's not even Christmas. I don't believe in the Christmas.
This is a copy of my book.
Put it up.
Illegal, a Hiphop Tale.
Is there a section, like a paragraph or something that sort of epitomizes
I'll just read the backup.
Okay, please do that.
This is a book they don't want you to read. Be careful because its subject is now illegal. This force is feared by the evil men of this world. Be careful because to speak of these things is now illegal. You have picked up a book that speaks of things that once were, that now is not, and yet millions now fight to have once again. Be careful because these things are now illegal. This will sound like heresy for those who don't understand, blasphemy to those who think they do, but it will serve as confirmation to those who have lived and died for it. What is it? Common rapped how he used to love her. Lupe Fiasco said it saved his life. Naughty by Nature made us shout hooray for it. What is it, and why is it illegal? It is illegal because it has the power to change your mind. This is hip hop. Those who dare embrace this force are called true hip hoppers. Be careful because to let these words leave your lips is illegal, and so are you. This calls for a mind with wisdom. Read if you dare.
You gonna sign it for me?
Yeah. There you go.
Please, please,
Oh,
please.
yes, I will.
Yeah, I thank you so much, very much, and like I said, I mean, it's two great individuals. It's just great that how we know each other. Get some photos before you go.
All right, yeah. Here you go, personal copy.
I got something to say.